Hi, my name is Timmy, and welcome to this one-off special event. GameSpot and the Nerd Council present the Men's Mental Health Forum. This event is forming part of Men's Mental Health Month here in the UK. November marks a time where we look at men's mental health as a whole and address what it means to be a man and how negative and positive stereotypes can affect men's mental health overall. The Nerd Council was founded by myself, Ludo and Ryan, and has grown from strength to strength in becoming a global platform where we can offer community to people, covering all things nerdy in the space of anime, comics, gaming, film and TV. We have grown to have a community that allows us to have both online and offline events, such as our infamous quiz nights and live podcast shows. The Nerd Council has dedicated itself to offering a safe space for people to come together to discuss things that they love in an environment that they can actually thrive in as well. We saw the opportunity to discuss something that was very important to us. We decided to team up with GameSpot to produce this event to make sure that we're having conversations about mental health within the gaming space. There can be a lot of negativity associated to the gaming space, especially when it comes to men's attitudes and mindsets to gaming as a whole, their interactions with other gamers, and their value within the industry, which is why we're so thankful to be able to host this event for you guys. Joining us for this one-off special event will be Ino Tomlinson, who's an actor and a streamer, leader at the Rainbow Arcade, Ben Thompson, streamer and anime lover, Chocolate Kieran, streamer and mental health advocate, Shogun Ash, fundraising manager at Calm, Faye Evelyn, and studio head at Ninja Theory, Dominic Matthews. We hope you leave this forum and event with a better understanding of your own mental health and the mental health of those around you. While this event does address men's mental health, we do want to assure you that we understand that mental health affects us all. So we hope that you leave this event with a better understanding of your own mental health as well. Please sit back and enjoy. So if we start off with Inel.
Hey, what's happening, everybody? My name's Inel. I'm an actor, a comedian, and a voiceover artist as well. I've been in the games industry for a number of years, mainly in the acting kind of department, appearing in various video games and things. And I've always been an avid gamer since when I was a kid.
Hey guys, really nice to be here. Thanks for having me, and thanks to me for putting this together. It's really cool. So I work for Calm, which is the Campaign Against Living Miserably. We're a suicide prevention charity, and we have sort of just in the last sort of 6 to 12 months started a foray into gaming. I'm really crap at games, so thank you for having me here.
I'm Ash, also known as Shogun Ash. I am a gaming content creator, also freelance within the gaming industry, doing campaigns and marketing and stuff for, I want to say, about 4 years now, primarily with Konami, but also branching out with other companies as well. But yeah, that's me.
Ben, or Little Legs TV, and I've been content creating for 5 years on Twitch while working a full-time job, and it's stressful, but it's fun at the same time. Outside of that, I actually work as a network support engineer for a big ISP company. You would never expect it because I'm incredibly immature, but that's pretty much it for me.
I'm Dom Matthews, studio head at Ninja Theory. We're a UK games developer, part of the Xbox Game Studios group. And we released a game called Hellblade, Senua Sacrifice a couple of years back, which tells the story of a character who experiences a serious mental health difficulty.
I'm Kieran. Nice to meet you guys. Thank you for having me as well, by the way. I appreciate it. I'm a huge lover of anime, Nintendo, and JRPG games. It's pretty much what I do on both Twitch and YouTube. It's pretty much it from me.
Okay, the first question I have for you all is, how has gaming helped with your mental health? And we'll start with, I know.
With my mental health, I would say it's always kind of been something that's kind of always been there for me ever since I was young. When I was young, real quick story, I used to move around a lot, different schools, because we used to move to different houses and council houses and things like that. I had to really quickly make friends in the playground when I was younger, because I'm just hopping to new places, meeting new people all the time and new kids. And the best way I found to kind of integrate into with these new kind of communities and schools was chatting about video games, talking about Mario and Sonic in the playground, and talking about how Mario's better than Sonic all day, every day.
Of course, facts.
It would help me out, because otherwise I'd felt really lonely from you get a whole bunch of friends you make in a school, and suddenly you have to kind of uproot your life and then move to a completely different place with completely different people, and you have to kind of start again. And as a young kid, that kind of plays its toll on you. Gaming was always kind of my way into kind of getting new friends, but also kind of keeping me happy at the same time, just sitting down playing a Nintendo game.
Faye, I know you said you're crap at video games, but has gaming helped your mental health at all?
There's a really bad game. I can't remember what it's called. It's on my phone. It's not to the level you guys play, but it's basically like a piece of cheese.
We're good at games.
Yeah, exactly. It's basically a piece of cheese that you've got to get through a maze of mouths. So like you can't let it get eaten. And honestly, like being able to just switch off and go and have something to focus on, and sort of just take a step back from the news, world event, whatever's going on, like even just 15 minutes of like focus can make a really big difference.
It's had a massive effect on my mental health. I actually did a stream the other day where I was just like kind of just doing a just chatting stream, talking to my audience. I was talking about the fact that for me, video games is very much therapeutic for me. It's my escape from just the general stresses of life. And I mean, this year's been a mad year for pretty much everybody.
Oh yeah.
And just being able to have, I guess, more freedom than ever to just really kind of throw myself into the world of gaming and just kind of be who I want to be for that period of time and be in that world. It makes a huge difference. And obviously being able to create content around that as well.
I can definitely resonate with that. Absolutely. Ben, how about your perspective?
Yeah, well, pretty much the same as Zanelle, really. I moved around a lot as a kid as well. And I was always the kind of the shy one that never really wanted to speak to anybody. And the only thing I had in common with other children or many of these different schools was the fact that I played video games. And, you know, even outside of that, outside of school, I could escape because, you know, being one of the very few Black people in a very, very white school, there was always the bullying. So I could be somebody else at that time when I was going through a little bit of an identity crisis. It played havoc with my mental health. So playing games, I could be that character. I could fully immerse myself and evolve, grow within this video game, become part of it, which obviously led me down this path. Now I'm playing games for people that were in my situation that wish they had someone to be connected to or watch while they're playing these video games, that understand what it was that I went through back when I was a kid.
I've definitely seen the impact you and the Rainbow Arcade have had on so many people, so it's to be commended. Dom, you obviously work for a gaming studio, so I don't know whether your perspective is a little bit different in terms of how gaming has helped your mental health, because obviously you literally work and create games. So I don't know, can you delve a little bit into that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, definitely. Like as a kid, I always remember playing Pro Evo Soccer. Like I remember doing my exams, like GCSEs and stuff, and I would give myself like 45 minutes of revision, and then I could fit in one game of Pro Evo, and that was how I got through my GCSEs and my A levels, and when I was at uni as well. It was like that was always the way I did it. I needed that 15 minutes of escape.
Last but not least, Kieran.
Yeah, very similarly to what Dom mentioned just then, and Faye earlier, actually. Gaming's kind of helped in a way that it's an escape, almost like Dom said, literally like meditation, where you're able to kind of focus and hone in on one thing and distract yourself from everything else. And it's great in that way. But also it's kind of helped my mental fortitude in a way, in regards to like challenging games, to help build up, kind of have a stronger mentality when it comes to challenges in real life as well.
Faye, you mentioned using gaming as an escape, and obviously this year has been crazy in terms of COVID and lockdowns, and but personally I've had to use gaming as a way to escape or manage even the situation that we're in. How has COVID and the lockdown situation affected you guys mentally? Let's start with Ben.
It's been a mess. It's all exciting. I know it sounds really strange, but it was exciting at first, the concept of working from home. But being one of the first to work from home has kind of, you're there for a couple of weeks and you think this is fine, everything's working fine. And then you realize you can find to your one area, the very minimal interaction going out. And the things that you took for granted, like seeing your friends just casually on the fly, yes. I missed that so much. So not to say that when lockdown, because it didn't really end in my perspective, it just was reinforced, if you know what I mean. So
yeah, definitely.
I think I've gotten used to it now, and I started to enjoy my own company more and finding things to push me to the next level in terms of what I'm doing on Twitch now. And absolutely. That was just a hobby a year ago. I never expected anything was going to be the way that it is now, but I've got things to look forward to. I'm constantly filling that time where I'd be sitting in my own thoughts, with positive things that are a distraction, if you will, while obviously keeping everybody safe.
No, I can definitely resonate with that. I think there was a point when the lockdown first started around March, April, where I was literally ready to give up on everything. But I thought, let me try and put my all into my content creation. I started streaming more. I found enjoyment in gaming. And like I said, gaming was a release, an escape for me from the dread that was a lockdown. Dom, how about you? How's the lockdown been for you?
Yeah, tough, I think. Initially it's kind of exciting being able to maybe achieve like a bit of a better work-life balance. But I think like the lack of space for yourself, like I think I'm very conscious now that you have to make time and space for yourself, you know, that you might have got on your commute to work or you might have got just during the day. So I think that's something I'm super conscious of, but also just getting outside. Like I know that sounds silly, but actually
that's right.
I need to get outside. I need to get some sunlight and some fresh air and actually be outside. It's super easy, I think, to kind of wake up, be at work or kind of do your thing all day long, you know, play some games and then that's it. And kind of before you know it, you're like 2-3 days in before you've actually been outside.
Yeah. Or even just turn off the news.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for real.
For real. No, definitely.
Ignorance is bliss is really I know. How's lockdown been for you, mate?
I guess like what Dom was saying, it's been tough for everyone, really. And I guess in terms of how it's affected people mentally, in terms of their health, I don't think we can even comprehend the amount of how it's affected everybody, especially people. I guess people in the arts, especially I'm in the arts. I'm a stand-up comedian as well. Most weekends I was out on the road in different cities doing stand-up comedy gigs in comedy clubs. All of that's gone, and it's a case of. I know a lot of people, comedians I know and actors especially, it's almost like they've lost their purpose and what they felt they were on this earth to do, they can no longer do it. And I guess for me, like Dom said, I had to kind of try and be proactive about, okay, what can I do? What are the things I can do? I'm someone who likes to kind of try and keep fit or the best I can. And so what I've been doing is I've been playing Ring Fit Adventure on literally just trying to keep my fitness levels up. And as well as just trying to be there for people as well, just like platforms like Twitch. I think a lot of people think it's just about watching people play games. It's not. It's about community building. It's about the community around it, and it's about people kind of checking in on you, seeing how you're doing, and you can check in on them and say, "Oh, how's things been going with you today?" And it's almost a nice way of people to kind of say, you know what, like hasn't been too great, but now that I'm here, I'm enjoying the vibe, and my afternoon is getting better. And it's those kind of small nuggets of things that I think are important. And I think we should acknowledge that platforms like Twitch are providing in this current landscape.
It's so great to hear you say that, because that's why Calm and myself have been so passionate about starting to like get to know the community and bring gaming into like the core of how we speak to the world. Like we use comedy, we use football, we use music a lot, and actually like we've recognized that there's this amazing, it's already a community that like takes such good care of itself. So how do we help like support that and like become more part of it?
Because I think a lot of people forget it's as everyone's at home, everyone's watched all their Netflix movies and seen everything. They want to kind of engage with something new and entertaining to kind of their spirits, but at the same time, TV's not really providing that. It's not fast enough. It's not live enough. It's not interactive enough. And I think platforms like YouTube and Twitch and I guess Facebook gaming, they're kind of providing that landscape for people to, you know what? I'm not really into games, but I like cooking, and let me try watching this person like cook in their kitchen. And it's that nice kind of, it gives that homely kind of feel. You know, when people used to say they used to just turn on the radio just to have something going on in their house.
The background outside.
There's something going on, like they don't want to be by themselves and quiet. It's kind of like that in a way where you don't necessarily have to kind of fully engage with the streams you're watching, but you can have it on in the background and you can see what someone's doing, and then, you know, maybe get on with some work, check some emails, come back, and they're still doing whatever they're doing, and it's nice.
I mean, I will say though, Inel's probably one of my favorite streamers ever. Like
he's too good.
Like honestly, Inel's streams bring me so much joy. It's just his energy is infectious. Like
I'm an early diver, that's why, bro. I got the edit. I don't do no evening streams.
I thought
burned out by midday, just completely finished.
Up at 2 p.m.
We're now moving to some more personal questions, and so this one's for Ash. How do you juggle being a father and your profession while maintaining your mental health?
Obviously, my kids are like the top priority, but then you also kind of have to, for their sake and your own, make sure that you're good as well, and prioritize yourself and make sure that you're in a good enough space to be able to be positive around them, especially the way everything is going on at the moment. I think since lockdown has happened, and obviously I spend less time traveling and such, I'm literally just in these four walls, managing pretty much all my life within this house. I'm kind of able to divvy that up a bit more healthily. And like I say, I don't think I'm particularly great at it at the moment. It's an ongoing process. One thing that this has taught me is that, I guess particularly as men, with the sorts of pressures that just come societally with men and providing and being strong for everybody else, I've had to learn to be realistic with myself, and kind of be easy on myself.
Also, next question. As a father who's open about their mental health, how will you raise awareness and understanding to your children of mental well-being?
Yeah, it's a big thing for me, and obviously becoming increasingly open about it. So when it comes to my kids, the way I would talk about that with them or kind of express that with them has to differ just because of their levels of comprehension. So with my eldest son, I'm quite frank and open about it with him. Like, I've spoken very candidly about the fact that, I suffer with depression and anxiety and what that does, how that makes me feel. Like, I've talked about the mortality of it essentially with him. I'm fortunate in that he's quite switched on and a very good listener, in that I'm able to have that conversation with him. Still in a relatively child-friendly way, but also quite honest. Whereas like with my younger two, I still don't hide away from it with them. Like, they will see me depressed and struggling. They've seen me at rock bottom. But the main thing I talk to them about is to say, sometimes Dad's not feeling 100%. Sometimes I struggle. Sometimes I need to cry. Sometimes I need a hug. And I'm very affectionate with them in that sense.
I wanted to ask you guys, at what stage in your lives did you realize that you could use gaming as a form of escapism? Because for me personally, I've always played games from young, but for me, I didn't realize I could use it like that until I was in my teenage years. I got to a point where I could put like my headset on, and then I'd be in like my own little bubble that was like my world. So I kind of just want to ask you guys. So Ben, do you want to start off?
I think it was like when I left high school, if I'm truly honest. You're like friends forever. I'll see you around and you do all that stuff. Well, I didn't go to college because me and education just don't get on. But after, when everything dies down, you're thinking, okay, I've spent so much time getting to know certain people for so long, and now the safest people known to me have disappeared. Yeah. That's when I was already like deep into Final Fantasy XI, my first sort of MMORPG, and I spent like 10 years playing that game with people all over the world. I've always been like really socially anxious anyway, but going out and meeting new people was quite difficult in a sense. With that in mind, playing Final Fantasy again, I'm still friends with a lot of them now, and yeah, since high school it's been crazy, really crazy, and it just sort of evolved from there. Obviously, moving cities was another big thing that happened. Again, I'm moving into a place where I don't know very many people and expecting to have this lifestyle of getting to know absolutely everybody, which I did my best with that. But I would always fall back and feel safe in an online game where I knew, there's always going to be the people that I've known for years there. And that was a safe place for me. It's a lot of massive stress relief, I'll tell you that much. Because Manchester really can throw it to you sometimes. Really. Hell yeah. Honestly.
Oh, man. Kieran, same question to you, man. Like, when did you notice gaming was an escape for you?
I feel like I've always been doing it subconsciously, like from a really, really young age. Like, I remember my first PlayStation game was Digimon World, and I just remember being on that and just sulking into it and just kind of just being in there away from everything. But I think when I became more conscious of it was probably when I started to play Halo 3 on Xbox 360 with friends around the time I was kind of doing exams in GCSE. Around that time, like I do remember being like super worried and anxious about how well I'd do in school, and just kind of playing with my friends and just kind of forgetting about that on live was just like, I don't know, just forget everything. It was like just back in the game world with my friends and not worrying about anything going on in, real world worries. And yeah.
It's quite similar to my experience, because I think I was at that same point, sort of near exams, and I was playing Skyrim. and I was just like I dropped so many hours into Skyrim non-stop, and it was sort of just a way to like zone out and take a step away from everything. So yeah, I get it. What about you, Ash?
Yeah, subconsciously, probably since my teens. Again, the soaking hours into Master League. When I became acutely aware of it, probably my mid-20s. Yeah, just knowing that I was going to set some time away just to chill. The same way that people would do with TV. And some people will say, okay, end of the day, I'm going to wind down, bottle of wine, and watch soaps or whatever. Like, that never appealed to me. But then I realized I could equate that with video games. And that's when it became a part of my daily routine. I will play video games every single day as a mental health exercise.
Take it back to Ben real quick. Ben, obviously you founded the Rainbow Arcade. What do you feel are the barriers of entry into the gaming space for LGBTQ people and how they impact mental health?
It's the barriers of entry into it's difficult within video games because we always look at it from an alpha male perspective. There's always you can't game with us because being any form of LGBTQ, you're undermined. You are always going to be like this player. Oh no, I'm going to raise my hands up the keyboard. This is not how you play the game. You're trash. Basically, you're always beaten. Let's just say, for lack of a better word, when it comes to being gay in that community or in any gaming community. But this is the thing, how it's evolved from that. We sort of had to say, well, if you don't want us in your space, we're going to create our own little pot within it.
Gotcha.
And then the pot just overflows because it's drawing people in and people feel safer with us. And then everybody else on the outside, the ones that didn't want us in the first place, are like, well, actually, what are you doing actually? Because everything looks quite fun over there now. And then they learn from us, from the understanding, watching us, that we are just the same as everybody else. It's just, we happen to be LGBTQIA plus. It's never going to get any easier. Let's put it that way.
Oh, definitely.
It's not going to get any easier. But the thing is, it's slowly but surely our presence in the Rainbow Arcade. Just bearing in mind that it was John, and Justin mainly that raised the Rainbow Arcade. We are a safe place, and not only it's not all about games all the time. We talk about everything that's going on within the LGBTQI plus community and their mental health. And again, we want this to be a safe, positive environment. You'll never see one tweet out of place. Everything is consciously thought through. We want to protect the community. We're not there to, put somebody on a pedestal. It's not about sales and marketing. It's not that everybody is welcome.
I mean, Ben, obviously, because you're a community leader, has anyone in the Rainbow Arcade ever come to you wanting to discuss their own mental health, and how have you kind of managed that?
See, this is what we're quite proud of at the Rainbow Arcade. We talk openly and honestly amongst each other. So we have our own Discord as a team where we talk about absolutely everything that's going on, obviously, in the outside world. But then we have a personal section that's just for us. And what I'm very proud of in every single member is that we talk openly and to each other. And we talk from personal experiences. If we reply or we talk to each other about it, it's always from personal experience. So not, you should do this. We'll give them the opportunity and send them in the right direction, not just part them off and say, I don't know how to deal with that, sorry. Acknowledging that and giving them the tools that they need. Again, I think the community as a collective does that, which is wonderful.
But what do you think has changed in the last few years for men to open up more? And I'll ask Dom, before you go, I would say for me, what I've noticed in the last few years for men to open more, I would say is men are getting educated a bit more as well, and people being more open as well, and they're seeing things through the social media, through the internet, through things in real life, and just seeing like how to deal with something that's affecting me, but I don't know the reason why. For example, me, it's been very present in moments in my time where things have affected me for so long, but I didn't know why. So I thought I got to get to the bottom of this and find out. And you get diagnosed, you find out what's happening and how to go away and deal with that. And also speaking to people, you find out they're going through things like you as well, just being open about it. So Dom, what would you say?
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, I think the big change is I want us to get to a place as a society and as a culture where talking about mental health challenges and difficulties is the same as talking about physical health challenges. Yeah. But I think the big thing is maybe it's generational, but it's a culture change of being able to people to have the confidence to say, I'm struggling today, I'm not feeling great, and then other people going, oh, that's cool. Like, do you need me to help you out? Do you want to talk about it? Do you want to chat about it? And moving as far away as we can from this concept of men having to man up, right?
Yeah.
I hate that phrase, man.
Yeah, I hate
it's such a negative phrase.
Yeah.
And
this idea of being strong, having to be a strong man and having to be, because I know from my own experiences when I've struggled, I haven't wanted to talk about it at times, and this was kind of many years ago, because I don't want to scare people around me, right? I'm the male here. Like, I don't want people to be worried about me. Like, I'm all fine, I'm all good, don't worry. And I think the more people talk about it and say it's not a weakness.
No, not at all.
If you're struggling, it's not a weakness. Everyone is on this same journey as a human being, and you're gonna have ups and you're gonna have downs. I've had problems with OCD and struggled with that. And I remember talking to someone about it, saying like, oh, I would have to do these things. I would have to say these things or do these little rituals, and that would make me feel at ease and comfortable in the world. And someone said to me, oh, really? Like, I always saw you as like a really level-headed guy. And I was like, and I think that's the path that we need to go, right? Yeah. It's not about being level-headed. It's about being a human and experiencing the world. Like,
that is it.
And it's fragile, and we can't cope with that. Like, our brains can't cope with the fact that the world is fragile and nothing is determined, and we have to find our path through it. And just one other quick point about like people within communities, like reaching out and like knowing it's a safe place to come and talk about these things. Like, we really experienced that with Hellblade. When we shipped Hellblade, we told the story of a character who experienced psychosis, and we created a bunch of dev diaries to talk about how we'd done that. And it struck me so much that just from us releasing the game, made people want to come and talk to us and come and talk to me about their mental health difficulties. They didn't know me at all, but I would get emails from people saying, hey, I've just played Hellblade and it's made me want to tell you about my experience. And some people said, like, I haven't told anyone else. I haven't told my family, I haven't told my friends. I'm effectively telling a stranger here. And the only reason they're telling me is because they see me as a safe place. Because I've talked about, and I've worked on a game that treats these subjects in the right way. And that kind of made me really think about, like, wouldn't it be great if that person's friends or family were that safe haven as well? They could do a far better job. I actually kind of realized that I had like OCD or OCD type tendencies as a result of Hellblade, because we started working with a professor in psychiatry and neuroscience, and I was sitting with him and with other people who themselves were telling us their stories of experiencing psychosis, and it felt like such a privilege because I got to sit there and listen to these people's stories and listen to the science, and it made me think, oh, maybe those things that I do, maybe the fact that I talk to magpies and I do these things, maybe this is connected. It made me go and actually Google it. Like, and my kind of story is I found a website that talked about OCD, and I was like reading down, going, yep.
Same experience.
Oh, that's me.
I think we've had those moments.
That's that thing. And you know what? That's really reassuring to me, because you could go, it's not just me. It's not just me.
That's exactly it. It needs to be more mainstream, and like when games and media kind of put it out there for people to kind of experience, then they can kind of realize, oh, actually they can latch on to different things and they can kind of identify things. I guess that's why representation as a whole is just like
massively.
Once people can kind of identify and see themselves in different situations or scenarios, or even just like small parts of a game where it's like, oh, I know what like Senua was going through at this particular point. I'm going through a similar thing, and it's that kind of connection that I think the more that is mainstream, the more it's out there and open, the more we can kind of talk about it, and it's not taboo.
You know what? I'll ask you, because you're on the point now. What do you think has changed for men to open up more now as well? No,
I think like what Dom was saying. I think it's like a generational thing. It's a cultural thing. Technology has played a huge part in terms of people being able to kind of educate themselves. I know some people, they educate themselves in false things, but like in terms of people being able to acquire knowledge now, it's not a thing of you're just spouting ignorant stuff to someone else and then they just have to believe it. Now you can ask Google, say, yo, Google, what's the deal with this? And you can kind of find out for yourself. In terms of just talking about it to loved ones and friends, I feel like people are feeling a bit more open to kind of do those things. Like, I've had conversations with my mum in the last few years that I never probably would have had. I never would have saw myself having when I was younger. As time's gone on and I've educated myself on things to do with me and my mental health and my mental stability, and then I look at my family and it's like no, like this situation would have happened and we would have just like we would have just just left it and tried to carry on as if nothing's happened. And then it's like, no, actually, let's address this. Let's talk about it. Let's open up about it.
Also, you, Faye, what do you think has changed to make men more open to being open up? Because you are calm as well. You know, you guys there. What do you see? What's been the shift for you?
It's essentially a very steady cultural shift towards being realistic about the fact that statistically they say 1 in 4 people battles with their mental health at some stage during their life, and Calm says 4 in 4 people have mental health. Everyone has mental health. If you broke your leg, you would get it fixed. So if something's going on with your mind, why wouldn't we address that? Absolutely. And we talk quite openly about how we feel physically. So why wouldn't that be something that we do about our mental health? And I do think, thankfully, we are seeing, like we've said, generationally, you see these changes. I think the more that campaigns like Calm and other mental health charities that are out there, and there are so many great ones out there, we are all campaigning towards getting rid of the stigma around a lot of sort of toxic masculinity stereotypes of you have to be the breadwinner, you have to be the strong one. We know that a lot of people who battle with their mental health, it comes down to I've lost my job and I can't support my family, and I feel a lot of shame around that. And so just getting rid of all of these things, recognizing that, and that it's okay, like we've said throughout this conversation, to talk to people. And if you don't necessarily have a haven, or if you're feeling really shy to talk to your family or friends, knowing that places like Calm, Samaritans, there are helplines out there. The dream would be, for example, being able to get people message in game if we were working with developers and that kind of stuff.
That would be crazy.
That'd be amazing.
Look at that.
Wouldn't it?
I feel like with the stereotype of strength as well, the strongest thing a person can actually do is be open and honest with how they're feeling and who they are anyway, right? So
absolutely.
I feel like to say that speaking on how you're feeling, whether that be something negative or positive in regards to your emotion, is it doesn't make sense to me to call that a weak thing when it's it's something that's hard and difficult.
It is hard.
Super strong to be able to do that.
There is strength in vulnerability. That's something that's said to me by my therapist a couple of years back, and it's rung true since. There is true strength in being vulnerable, whether that's being vulnerable emotionally, even sometimes physically, being sad or being happy. That vulnerability is true strength.
Things are getting better, I feel.
Yeah.
I mean, just with friends that I know, 10 years ago, telling them to go see a therapist, they're like, bro, that's not.
Yeah, what are you trying to say, bro?
Right. But nowadays, it's a few of them have been, and the ones that still haven't, they're contemplating it. You can tell there's a shift happening, and they're not quite there yet. We're not quite there yet, but you can tell that that kind of mindset that they did have is shifting, and then thinking, actually, hold on, maybe if I do kind of speak to someone about this, things could kind of change for the up for me.
Next question. Why has Calm become involved in gaming in the last 6 months?
Oh, well, a little bit because of everything that I've just touched on. And also a little bit sort of zeitgeisty. I was looking at fundraising through gaming, because a lot of people do charity streams, which is amazing. It really is just a really beautiful phenomenon in terms of supporting charities around the world. And then Yuki, who's a games industry body, got in touch with us and to talk about taking care of sort of the industry side and how we look after people. And then about 2 months later, we went into lockdown, and we sort of said, the world's on pause, so let's take time to take care of ourselves, and gaming is one of the ways to do that. And again, we all keep talking about social distancing, and we sort of said, well, we have to physically distance, but that doesn't mean that we have to socially disconnect. And games and platforms like Discord and so on and so forth are ways of maintaining those connections.
Also, 75% of all suicides are committed by men in the UK. What can we do as a society to change this?
The UK loses 125 people a week to suicide, which is just so
a week. Wow.
Yeah, it's a huge statistic. And if you think about the number of people that each of those losses impacts, the ripple effect of that, the fact that we don't sort of talk about it as much as we should be, given how many people we know are affected by that loss. I think sort of the main things that we can do, and certainly what Calm does, we campaign for change. We campaign to get people talking. We campaign to reduce stigma around suicide and around mental health. And as you say, 75% of those 125 losses to suicide a week are male. And I just think everything we've touched on in this conversation helps contribute to those changes. I think being part of making it okay to say when you're feeling crap, getting your family and friends to like embrace it. And please always feel free to signpost to Calm. I'll do a little plug, thecalmzone.net. And our helpline, plug away. And our helpline and web chat, they are open 365 days a year, 5 p.m. to midnight. And you can find the information on the website at thecalmzone.net. The helpline and web chat have answered 884,000 calls and chats and directly prevented 282 suicides. So it's a lot. That's a lot of conversations. It's 14,500 hours of talking. So people need us, and we are there. We want people to call us.
I've got a question now, which I want to direct at all of the guys as well. So at what stage in your life did you start taking your mental health seriously? And was there sort of like a motivation behind it that made you want to start taking it seriously?
I think I probably started thinking about my mental health a lot more in the last probably 5 years. And that was the point at which I realized that you have to proactively manage it. And like, this is going to sound like a terrible analogy, but I genuinely think about it like a power bar or a health bar in a game, right? If your kind of mental health gets too low, then that's where you start to get to a place where it's a problem, right? And you have to proactively build that health back up. And you have to build that power back up, right? And do things that like help you to relax, help you to chill out, help you to build back up, build energy back up. And I think for years I kind of had that sense of, no, I'm fine, I'm cool, I'm good with this. Like, you know, people would say to me, you're working too hard, like you're doing emails all the time and working all the time, and people would say to me, you need to chill out. And I'd be like, listen, I don't need to chill out. I'm fine. And I think then as soon as you realize, actually, this isn't something that's going to manage itself, you need to proactively get the balance. And when you realize that power bar is getting a bit low now, I need to do something to build it back up, then you can maintain that balance. And I think for me, it's recognizing that it is a balance, right? And that's what I mean about it's a journey. It's ups and downs. You're never going to flick a switch and go, oh, I'm cool now.
What about you, Ben? Is there anything you'd like to add on that one?
Being a minority within a minority, I only realized that it was a problem in my mid-20s, I'd say, when I've realized that, although I'm part of the LGBTQ community, I'm still Black within that. And it was very, very, very difficult. And it was a hard hitter, when you start to get to know people in this big city, because you realize, although they're friends with you, they're friends with you for one reason. We'll go down that route. But when it comes to, like for me personally with mental health, I have to really take myself away from that. And through taking myself away from certain communities, I started to gain a lot more Black friends. And I would say I sort of found myself through them. And it's very strange to say that loud, but through these newly acquired friends that happen to have something in common with me, I've realized that I'm not alone. They're experiencing the same problems as me. I've got people that I can talk to openly and honestly about my struggles now. Obviously, the identity crisis I had when I was younger, because I was raised in a white community, and the fact that I was going back to video games, I would use games to escape the fact that I was somebody else completely. Then, it's been incredibly difficult. And, these conversations that I'm having now are open, honest, something that I needed a long, long time ago. And if I could go back 10 years just to have a conversation with myself, it would be, you're going to be all right. Just be patient, take your time. There's no rush.
So I've got a question for Kieran, and has there ever been a stage where your content creation has suffered due to like mental health? And if there is there any advice that you've got somewhat for people out there who might be anything just to help them out?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, last year was an extremely difficult year for me because of mental health. Similarly to Dom, actually, I discovered that I had OCD tendencies, which has given me a lot of intrusive thoughts that made streaming and creating content extremely difficult. Rather than streaming consistently like I was before, for example, I may go like 1 stream a week or 2 stream a week, because I was finding it difficult to kind of get out there and feel comfortable doing it without my own thoughts attacking me. And then I'd kind of just feel like I'd have to sort of nap my days away or try and distract myself from what was going and, try and escape from it in a way. It was actually trying meditation. And then, of course, I went to therapy as well. That helped a lot. And it kind of helped me to understand what was going through my mind and what I was feeling and let it pass rather than try and force it away or fight against it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then with time, that kind of helped me feel more comfortable in order to kind of, slowly move forward and get back to myself and get back into my content. So I would definitely say, even if you don't fully understand what's happening, if you're not feeling right, definitely speak to someone and don't be too hard on yourself as well. I also think it's extremely important. I find now when I'm not necessarily having a good day or, I'm emotionally spent or mentally taxed, I think it's important to let my community know as well. So I tend to tweet a lot if I'm not feeling too good and, I'm open about that and let them know that I'm having a Kieran day to kind of back to myself and, feel better about things. And people have been, really, really cool about that and really supportive. So it's nice that I can kind of have a community that is beneficial to me as well as the other way around. So as well as me kind of being there for them, it's nice to know that they're also there for me in a way.
No, definitely. I think as content creators, we kind of sometimes overwork ourselves to kind of meet the demands of our subscribers or viewers, however you want to put it. But I think it's good advice to any content creator to just be like, if you're having an off day, it's okay to have an off day. It's okay if you don't make that YouTube video. It's okay if you don't make that stream. It's okay if you don't finish that piece of work. If you need to take a day to yourself to just reset and realign your thoughts or however you want to put it, that's fine. It's okay to do that. And now, sorry, I keep calling you Enel and Io. Sorry, mate. As an actor, what mental challenges have you faced in certain roles? Or if you have faced any mental health challenges in certain roles, and how have you overcome them?
Well, acting in general, I will say, has helped me to kind of be okay with being emotionally vulnerable. I think when you think about the best actors in the world, I think for me, the best actors are when you can see they're in tune with their own emotions, their strengths and their weaknesses, and they're using those to kind of combine who they are with the character that they're trying to portray. There's many techniques. There's like Stanislavski techniques where people use kind of emotional memory, where they kind of draw upon kind of moments in their past, their own personal thoughts and feelings or scenarios they've been through, and they kind of utilize those feelings to kind of then empathize with the character and then kind of utilize that in whatever piece they're doing, whether that's theater or video games or films. And for me, it's really opened up my eyes to kind of being okay with who I am. And it sounds a bit silly and a bit cliche, but I think it's important because before the greatest struggles I find in acting is actually being that vulnerable, allowing myself kind of go to those places, allowing myself to kind of acknowledge that, okay, we're taking on some real kind of dark issues here in this particular text, but I have to kind of also distance myself and remember to kind of decompress afterwards and say, this is just a role. I'm going through a role. And I think we need spaces like that to allow actors and performers to kind of go to those spaces, but also allow them to say, this is a safe space to be able to kind of do that. When I look at video games now, and some of them can get quite violent and some of them can go to some dark places. But at the same time, I'm grateful to hear people like Dom talking about how the studies and the science and the kind of personal kind of experiences that they went through to kind of get Senua kind of up and running. And I love hearing that, because that's what it's about. It's about being able to show those, it's being able to kind of explore mental well-being and mental health in interesting and interactive ways, but also be considerate about those that are going through it, and also kind of display it in a way that will make people understand and empathize, rather than people kind of shun and kind of shy away from it.
I want to point out through my own journey that having issues with your mental health does not mean that you're not a positive person, or that you cannot be a force for positivity also.
Yeah, facts.
I think that's something that I struggled with a little bit, as like throughout my life, just being known as this positive person. People rarely know me as, you know, sad or upset, but it's totally okay to be a positive person, be a force of positivity, and also have your own struggles and be open about that. I think as a positive person, it's actually important to express that it's normal, and that even people who are deemed as positive may also go through these as well.
Yeah.
Is there anything else apart from gaming you look to do when your mental health isn't the greatest? Like, for example, when it's not gaming, I'll look to do comics or watch my favorite shows, my favorite anime. What do you do?
Anime.
I love running. I love going for like a good run.
You have too much energy, I know, man. You have way too much energy.
Just some kind of rest, bro.
Like a nice morning run, wake up, and then just like, because it's like I said, it's like the endorphins that you get.
Yeah.
Also, it just like it gets my mind energized. It gets me kind of like focused. Any thoughts that I got, they're going through my head, but also I have to kind of manage my breathing. I got to kind of maintain that energy. I got to kind of maintain my speed, and then by the time I finish a run, I feel good about myself, even though I might have been thinking about some stuff that I've been going through.
Oh no, for me, I'm in that kitchen. The moment anything, just switch off, electrics, all that, phone down, kitchen, music's on. You will not see me for hours on end. And I will just cook until I've forgotten how many hours have passed, and I'm sat there eating. I'm in a good place, trust me.
Like, I'm coming around to yours.
Do you know what I mean?
I think just going for a walk as well, right? Like, I think like I'm super conscious that particularly right now, like a lot of people's jobs are under threat and stuff. And it's like, if you've got a steady job and you've got income, like you've got access to a whole bunch of stuff. You've got access to Netflix and to games and to music and stuff. And for a lot of people, they don't. So like, I think like literally just going for a walk.
Dom, with Senua Sacrifice, what was the biggest challenge you and the team faced? Especially because the game has a very heavy theme of mental health and psychosis, which is a mental health problem that isn't discussed a lot. So what was the biggest challenge for you guys?
I think it was getting that right. I think we wanted to, as soon as we decided that we wanted to tell the story of someone who experienced psychosis, like we knew we had to get that right, and we wanted to base it in research. You know, if we kind of had these conversations around, well, look, if we're going to do a game about a character who experiences psychosis, then we need to kind of be super upfront about that,
right,
and go and deliver on that. So I think getting that right was the challenge. And you know, when we started off the game, we started talking to a guy called Professor Paul Fletcher, who's a neuroscientist at University of Cambridge, and he came to meet with us and started to talk to us about the science side of psychosis. We then, through Paul, had the chance to work with a recovery college, which is a unit in Cambridge as well, that helps people with mental health difficulties to kind of get back up on their feet and give them a real purpose in life. And hearing these stories and hearing people's experiences and the things that they would see, the beliefs that they would have, the things that they would hear, you can find them in Hellblade. They're in that game, like some of them like one for one, because it was so compelling. And as we went through it, like so many things we heard, like this is going to make for an awesome game. It's particularly quite close to Hellblade releasing. There'd be a lot of people that would talk to me and ask me about, well, we want to make a game about mental health. Like we want to use a game to try and educate people. And the balance we had to get right in Hellblade was, like, first and foremost, it was a compelling game. Like we wanted to make a cool game that people wanted to play that happened to be about this character's story, because if it had been a game that wasn't compelling and was just about education, we wouldn't have had the number of people play it. There's no chance, right?
But I think that kind of leads into my second question for you, because I think I find it interesting that you could have just made Senua Sacrifice a game set in a Celtic setting with her as the main character, but what was the reason behind you wanting to go, we're going to make a game about mental health, and go from there? What's the thought process behind that? Because you could have just made any kind of game, but you decided to base it off mental health.
Yeah, I think Tamim, who's our creative director at the studio, he'd been kind of thinking about psychosis and reading up on psychosis. We've always made fantasy games, right? All our games have been set in fantasy worlds and fantasy settings, and we wanted to do the same again, and kind of came across this idea that we could create a world, a fantasy world. It was not a fantasy world, but it was actually the perception of the world from one individual's through one individual's eyes, and really exploring that idea of actually all of us are experiencing the world in our own unique way. There is no objective version of the world. So we set out to make an awesome game. You know, that's the truth. We set out to make an awesome game. We didn't necessarily set out to make a game that would educate, that would have an impact on people. We wanted to make an awesome game that was around this theme and to do it justice. I know there's a whole bunch of people that didn't read up on the game before they played it, probably played through it, got to the end. Okay, I get it, and I hope it's taught people something, or help people to understand a bit more, you know. And I think that's one of the big things for me, I think, is about education. Like I said earlier, I feel super privileged that I had the chance to sit down and talk to people who have experienced very, very difficult things, kind of battle with psychosis day in, day out. And I remember thinking, like, I wish other people could have this experience as well, to learn about this, because then next time they see someone coming down the road who might be talking to themselves or acting in an unusual way, maybe they wouldn't cross the road. Maybe they would think how difficult it is to be that person.
The game has clearly helped a lot of people. I've seen a lot of conversation around Senua Sacrifice. When you guys announced the sequel, there was a lot of, you know, what to expect next, what's going to happen next. So you clearly made impact with a single game. I don't know whether you guys are going to plan for Senua Sacrifice 3 or whatever, but you've clearly got something good in your hands.
Yeah, it's definitely a different vibe to Animal Crossing, that's for sure. Like,
I was in Final Fantasy prior to that. I didn't know I would be spending over 1,000 hours in that Animal Crossing. Feel attacked.
But yeah, it's one of them games, you know. Like, I really like Night in the Woods as well. I don't know if you've played that game, but the games that it's a different experience, you know. I think it can be a reflective experience, right? And I think with Hellblade, it is one that you take at your own pace. You know, it is tough at times. You know, it is tough, and it is exploring subjects that are tough and are difficult. But you know, I'm super passionate about games doing that. Movies and literature have been exploring really tough subjects for a long time. And now I think it's the turn of games.
Video games are interactive, and it means it can kind of tackle these kind of issues or have these discussions in a more interesting and more engaging way than film, music, or TV ever do.
Yeah. You have to do it. You decide.
It's responsive.
Exactly that. And I always draw back to the game What Remains of Edith Finch and how I felt playing through that game. I won't spoil it for anyone who hasn't played it, but you're essentially kind of looking through Edith's family tree. You're going through her family tree and you're finding out the stories of her family. And as you play through them, you start to realize the extent in which what each family member was going through throughout the game. And you're doing it in an interactive way because you're playing as them, and you kind of get an insight into these different mindsets. You start to empathize with the different situations, what they're going through. And it's video games that can do that. Whereas I can sit down and watch a film and it's fantastic, but me actually being that character and taking on that person in that shoot, being Senua in Hellblade, and literally going along with the decisions and making those decisions, that can affect people in a more engaging way than I think all the other mediums can do.
Definitely.
I think the thing we found as well is like games can give people a language in which to talk about their difficulties. I know with Hellblade, we had people who didn't know how to articulate the things that they were experiencing, and found in Hellblade they could say, go and play Hellblade, or have you played Hellblade? That's what I experienced. And it gave them a way of articulating. And I remember there was someone emailed us to tell us that they'd experienced some of the things that Senua had, and they'd overheard their brother saying that he was ashamed of her because of her mental health difficulties. And it kind of caused a bit of a rift in the family. She then played Hellblade and then convinced him to play it and said, listen, go and play Hellblade, because that's how I live my life. And he did. And he apologized to her and said, now I understand, you know. And that was, you know, that's awesome. And it's not just, I'm not just saying this about Hellblade, but this is the power that I think games can have.
So in terms of like lobbies, forums, voice chats, just communities in general, what impact do you think that they have on men's mental health, and what more can we do to improve it so there is more of like an open discussion amongst communities?
I think historically they've been a really bad place.
Yeah.
I think maybe my face kind of gave that away. It hasn't historically been a particularly positive place, and definitely not the place to call it a safe space. The fact that we've had to get to this point where people are actively going out of their way to create safe spaces which look completely different to what the general gaming community looks like says it all. The fact that we're stepping away from that traditional kind of community, the way that they're run, the kind of gatekeeping that would happen within those spaces, and saying, hey, this is for everyone and we want everyone to feel comfortable here, is not only positive but necessary. And conversations are happening and they are being challenged. There are still a lot of, we'll call them basement dwellers. We know the sort of people that are in that way inclined. They make it an unpleasant space where it has the potential to be completely opposite from that.
Yeah, I can 100% agree with that. Like, playing games, obviously, all the time. I tend to now play with just friends opposed to playing with strangers because I know how toxic it can be. Like, even this morning, just playing a little bit Dead by Daylight there, I was like, just going to shoot into a match. Immediately, there was quite a racist name. I was like, well, how did that get through? Like, usernames and certain words are censored and whatnot, and getting, so you could, it's still very much there. And I thought this was a big mistake. I'm just going to go back to bed for a bit. While a lot of the big industries are trying to fix that, a lot of the people that do play these games, and for us as content creators, we've managed to build these communities on the preface that they are safe with us. This is where it trickles down into Discord. And then we all play together, and then we share our communities with other content creators where we can trust and know that they're going to be safe. They're in their Discords, so it's like a bubble just to keep everybody safe.
I will say on the opposite end though, there are some good forums that can maintain some level of wholesomeness and
direct me
less toxic. I would imagine you'd be hard pressed to find any super toxic Animal Crossing forums. The Cerebi forums, which is Cerebi.net, it's
Pokemon.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Cerebi forums, I remember being on those quite a lot, especially for like trading, battling and stuff. And I found in my personal use anyway, they were pretty good, and it was kind of nice to kind of discuss topics with people who had similar interests. Or for example, if there was an anime episode and everyone wanted to talk about it, you don't have friends to talk about it with, it was nice to kind of hop on there and talk about fellow fans.
I think that kind of leads into my final question for the panel, which is, how do we as men create safe environments for us to talk about mental health?
Like we started off with, is showing that vulnerability. As a man, as a male, you've just got to be open and honest with absolutely everybody you come across. I think people can see a mile away now. In this day and age, people can see a mile away when something isn't right. So rather than just being inauthentic, say it,
Yeah, I'm going to totally agree with that. Definitely being vocal about it yourself. And then not just being vocal about it, but trying to help give others the tools to understand that there isn't something right as well. Because sometimes people don't necessarily realize, or they're, not necessarily that engaged or in tune with how they may be feeling. So giving someone the tools to kind of feel that or understand that is pretty helpful as well, I think.
I think, again, kind of following up on that, being open, being proactive in terms of like leading those discussions as well. I think we all know how hard it can be to, again, we talked about that first conversation, that first admission, as hard as it can be to deal with our own problems. It is kind of, I guess, kind of village mentality of, okay, everybody else has got to be cool. It's not just okay for one person to try and deal with things. Other people are going through it. Providing as many resources as possible as we can to other people, and taking away that stigma as well. I think it was touched upon earlier. The stigma is a huge thing.
There's a lot of stuff that we can do, but I think a simple takeaway for everyone who might be watching this is ask people if they're doing okay.
Yeah.
Think of your friends and your family, and if there's someone who's, doesn't seem quite right, maybe behaving a bit differently, sometimes it's really difficult for people to reach out and say, I'm not doing okay. But actually just saying, you know, however you would say, hey, are you doing okay? Or how are things
Yeah.
going? And I think if you've experienced something yourself and you've kind of got to a point where I think a lot of us have in this conversation, you've been through a bit of a journey yourself, you know, sharing those experiences, because that's a great icebreaker as well. You can go, hey, do you know what? I've experienced this.
Yeah.
And that really helps other people to open up and go, oh, okay, this is a conversation in which I can talk about these things and I'm not going to be judged.
I remember during the first lockdown, I literally just messaged a friend on WhatsApp, just asking him how he was doing and the kids. And I remember him replying to me saying, "You're the first person to have asked me, and it's been months. How is he doing?" That is a like can be a massive thing for some people.
And I think a lot of the charities, well, I know that Calm definitely does. Like, we've got a section on if you're worried about someone, here's ways of talking to them. So if there are times when you're like, I'm not sure, again, how to start that conversation from either side, that's quite natural. And it can be as simple as Dom says, of using like your normal language of like, hey mate, how's it going? But if you genuinely feel frightened, like there are resources available to help you, again, find ways to start those conversations, take the first steps, because it is so important.
Thank you to all our panelists for joining us for the Men's Mental Health Forum. We've really appreciated your insights. We've really appreciated your thought process when it comes to your own mental health and sharing advice with other people. To anyone that's watching that does feel like they want to get help or they know someone who they think needs help, we'll definitely share information on Calm and their various resources, maybe in the description or the chat. I'm not sure how this is going to work once this goes live, but we will definitely share information on Calm and what they're doing in terms of mental health and in terms of gaming. But again, thank you to all our panelists for joining us, and until next time.
I think with the headset as well, I can see why they put the disclaimer into to wear your headset, because all the different voices you can hear at the different angles they're coming from.
It's like it's the number one thing I always say to people is like, play the game with headphones. All of the voices in the game we recorded with through something called binaural audio. So binaural audio has been around for quite a while, but it's a way of recording sound so that when you listen back to it on headphones, it sounds as if you're listening to it in real life.
Yeah, no, that's definitely noticeable. It's the first thing that I picked up on.
We had all of our actors come into the studio, and the binaural microphones like shaped like a head. So you kind of all of the actors spoke to the microphone like it was a person, and were moving around it. And I think that really comes across in the game.
Definitely with the whole psychosis element that it leads into as well. It feels like at times I see it with her, she's got so many different voices going through her head.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So we kind of, when we sat down with people who had experienced voice hearing and listened to them speak about their experiences, some of them spoke to us about this idea of there being so many different voices and having so much character in those voices, and then being able to place them in the space around them. So that's really what we try to realize in the game, was that feeling of these multiple voices telling you different things, coming from different directions. So it didn't just feel like it was a voice within your head, but a voice that you could hear externally. You know, and that was one of the things that was really striking when we spoke to people who experienced voice hearing. So for some people, it sounds like a voice that you'd hear like you're hearing my voice now. So we really tried to bring that across in the game. I think that's what makes it impactful. One of the really interesting things with Hellblade, I think, was that we combined this story about someone who's experiencing severe mental health difficulties, but combined it with the combat game. You know, we're a studio that's known for our combat heritage, and you know, I think it was really interesting to get that balance right and to make it feel like this struggle that Senua was going through on her journey, both a physical struggle, you know, fighting against these kind of great hulking enemies that she is fighting against. Also the mental journey, psychological journey that she's going through throughout the story as well.
You can see that it highlights it. It's definitely relatable for some people. She might be a strong fighter, but you don't necessarily know what's going on the inside. What
we tried to create here was within Senua's story, she had been told about these Vikings and what they were like, that they were these monsters.
Yeah.
So when Senua finds herself in this place, she's projecting her own preconceptions onto what these creatures are, and then that's ultimately what she is seeing through her lens, and as a player, that's what you see as well. Which is really rooted in the concept of how our minds work, which is that we act on inputs that we're getting in the world right now, and also prior knowledge. So, which is something we learned from Professor Paul Fletcher, who's a neuroscientist that we worked with on the project. From our very first meeting, taught us about how our brain works in that way, how we experience the world around us is its current inputs, but it's also our preconceived knowledge or prior experiences that make us see the world in the way that we do. So in Senua's case, she's seeing the world based on the current inputs that she's getting through her eyes and her ears and through her senses, but also from the information that she's been given through her life that these Vikings are these huge monsters. What I hope we've achieved with the game as well is that we've explored these themes in a way that removes the player from modern day life. This isn't a modern story, but we're exploring the same themes that are as relevant today as they would have been back then in Senua's time.
That helps maybe to make open conversations easier between people that have played this game, that could then maybe come away from it and maybe talk about it with the help of the game.
Yeah, it does, because straight away your kind of preconceptions of things are removed, because it's a historical setting, but it's a fantasy setting. Therefore, the rules of the world are there to be explained to you and for you to interpret in your own way. So therefore, your preconceptions are lowered, are removed, and you can look at it afresh, which I think does help you to think about it differently. What was really interesting, as well as kind of all of our research that we did alongside with neuroscientists and people who experienced psychosis and voice hearing and seeing visions and having unique beliefs, we did a lot of work with to research into the history and the mythology, and worked with a really great collaborator called Elizabeth Ashman Rowe, who taught us so much about mythology. And so all of the runes that you see in the game and all of the mythology there is accurate to mythology that there is around. So if you wanted to take it as a history lesson in the game, then you absolutely
that's definitely one of the first things I noticed, because I'm quite big on Norse mythology, Greek mythology, and so on. So it's definitely something I noticed straight away, which for me is a plus, because I'm going to be playing the game now.
Yeah, people really enjoyed that. It was really working with Professor Paul Fletcher at the University of Cambridge, who's a neuroscientist, and he's really interested in games, really excited about games, because to an extent, in something like Hellblade, you are experiencing the world in the same way that we as humans do. You're kind of thrown into a setting, and you have to figure out the rules of the world, and I think that's true for everyone. Like in real life, you have to figure out the rules of the world, and we all have different interpretations of how the world works. And I think that does feed into difficulties that one can have around.
Of course, definitely. It's very unique in a sense, whereas the game goes further and delves into mental health, in which other games don't traditionally do. So it definitely helps to help maybe try to change the mindsets. People maybe view things differently, because you can escape into a game. If you can relate with a game, then maybe you can relate those problems to yourself as well.
And I think with games, it is unique in that you are stepping into the shoes of someone else. And
I've done it many times myself. If I'm feeling down, I switch my games console on. Do it all the time. If I'm going through a rough period, I always have a specific game that I sort of fall back on. Like for me, I mentioned it before when we spoke on the panel. For me, Skyrim, that was a massive game for me when I was growing up. It's just sort of, you can just forget about everything else. There's been loads, even if it's a different type of game. And so if I message one of my friends and I say, do you want to play a game of FIFA? There's so many different types of relaxation and zoning out and just sort of escaping into the world of gaming.
Yeah, and I think like something that I'm seeing as well and experiencing myself now, particularly with the pandemic and in lockdown, is actually because you can't get out and go to different places. You can't go on holiday, and like I love the mountains and you know, I haven't been able to get to anywhere where there's mountains for a long time now, but you can experience those places to an extent in games.
Yeah.
And you can go and explore all those places. And I think there's an added there's added value and added pleasure now with some games, like, because you can go into these worlds and you can just being there, you know, not even engaging in the gameplay or like just being in a different environment. I think games can, particularly right now, can offer you that.
Yeah, they can take you to a different place for sure.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you've been playing at the minute?
Just picked up Assassin's Creed.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, I kind of like playing FIFA. You know, like I think FIFA is kind of very much my go-to in terms of kind of relaxation. You know,
Yeah, I tend to the shooters. If I've had like a bad day at work, if I'm a bit stressed out, a bit annoyed after work, I'll come in, I'll sit down, I'll put on maybe like Apex or Warzone. That usually gets me. It usually lifts my spirits at times.
Yeah, I think it's like something like FIFA or Pro Evo. Like I think it's kind of time bound to an extent, right? You can go and play it for 15 minutes, and it focuses you in that world, and it's a good breather from everything else that's going on. I can't play online though, because I'm not that great, right? And I'll get trounced online, right? So that, like, for me, that's a completely different experience.
Yeah.
I'll just play a regular like game against the computer, right? And set the difficulty level that's right for me. But if I play online, I find that quite stressful, because then like ultra competitive, so it kind of has the opposite effect for me. So like for me, it has to be controlled, like time controlled, difficulty controlled, so I know that I'm going to get some joy out of it.
Yeah, for sure.
But like with Hellblade, like I think it's deliberately quite slow paced.
Yeah, that's I like that about a game though. For me, this is quite, because I like to play open world games more so than anything else. For me, I like to take in the setting, what's going on around you, especially if I want to put a couple of hours into something, to spend like a significant amount of time playing something.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting, like looking at something like the traversal speed. You know, it's something that we thought about a lot. Like, should Senua walk? Should Senua sprint?
Yeah, you can tell it's definitely designed for her to walk very slowly. You can tell a character doesn't. I picked up on it straight away. One of the first things I said is, "How do I sprint?"
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting. We experimented with that a lot, and actually, I think like the traversal speed makes the experience very different. Like at the times we had her like sprinting a lot faster. But it makes it it makes the experience really quite different, because at the pace at which Senua moves throughout the world, it's a lot more considered.
Yeah, it's like her body language mirrors sort of how she's feeling. You can tell it's definitely.
Yeah, no, that's good you noticed that. Like it's everything we really did in the game was in service of her journey, like, and everything is in service of that story and the journey that she goes through. So there was a huge amount of effort went into a lot of the, like I say, kind of the animation in the body language and those types of things to kind of express how she's feeling. It's one of the benefits of having a third person game, right? Is that you can do things even from seeing a character back of their head and seeing their back, you can still do things that convey the emotion.
So do you think now, like with the sort of what you touched on, what you started with Hellblade, do you think that will lead to sort of other games or just being made in the same vein type of thing? Do you think other people will maybe focus on it a little bit more and see it as something that can be portrayed in a game quite well?
Yeah, I think so. It's like we released Hellblade originally in 2017, and I think at the time, and it's only 3 years ago, but I think it was kind of the start of a real wave of discussion around mental health. And I think for us, we released the game when there was a lot being talked around across entertainment and across media. And I think since then, not that we were the first by any measure to kind of talk about the theme of mental health in the game, but I think Hellblade was prominent. Certainly prominent, and I think
very progressive in that sense.
Yeah, and I think there's now more games that have a mental health theme that is central to the experience. But I think you're also seeing games that are considering the mental health of their characters within the games as well, and how they should deal with that. So even if mental health isn't a central theme of the game, I think it's a consideration, you know, that's being taken into account. But it's, you know, it's the start. Mental health is one subject, and I think it's obviously an incredibly important subject. And I think, and like hopefully, like people find that in a game like Hellblade, it can provide for a very compelling experience as well. Films and books have been dealing with these types of topics for many years.
Yeah,
there's no subject that games should shy away from. So I think it's a really exciting time, and I think there's been just an explosion of creativity in games. I think particularly at the indie level, where teams and studios can just take creative risks and tell the story that they want to tell. And you're now starting to see that, I think, creep into more of the AAA space as well. I think platforms like Game Pass allow for studios like us at Ninja Theory to delve even deeper into our creative and take even more creative risks. So I think for us and for other people, they'll be able to tackle more and more subjects like this.
Yeah, hopefully, because playing with Senua, playing this, it's been refreshing. I mean, I know I've not got that far yet, but I mean, even when I played last night for a little bit, like straight away when I was playing, I was like, yeah, this is a game that I'm going to want to play after I'll play the game, see the story for myself, because it's just, for me, it's refreshing. I've not played a game before that even begins to sort of tackle these issues or speak about it. And like you said, whereas prominent at the moment, it's a very good game that I want to play.
When we first released it, because we deliberately didn't tell people too much about the game before we released it. There tends to be, with games like, you'll see a huge amount of content kind of around the story and around the setting and everything before the game was released, and we deliberately didn't do that with Hellblade because we wanted to keep it an experience that people could interpret for themselves. And it was fascinating when it was launched to just sit there and watch people streaming it online.
Yeah,
you see them going into it with kind of very little in terms of expectations, like as to what the experience was going to be like, and then gradually watch them play through the experience and see streamers connect with it, you know, and to see kind of a difference in tone as people went through the story and see people really connect with it, and you know, which is absolutely fantastic. It's great that I think so many people could find that they could relate to some of Senua's experiences or know people who have experienced similar things.
When we were speaking about it before, the combat was really good. I thought there may not be as much of a focus on the combat system.
Yeah, I mean, Senua is at the end of the day a warrior. She is a trained warrior. I think one of the kind of overarching elements that we were trying to make the player feel in the combat is that it feels like an ongoing struggle.
Yeah,
she's the underdog, and that she's fighting against the tide. So that by the time you get to the end of Senua's journey in Senua Sacrifice, you feel like you've been through it. You feel like you've had to battle at every step to get to the end of the experience. And I think that comes across, and I think a lot of that comes across in the nuance of the combat. You know, like you say, kind of some of the facial animation we have in there while she's fighting. It's not easy. It's not easy. It's a struggle for her, and we wanted that to come across to everyone that played it. And it's in our heritage, right? That's what in Ninja Theory.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, of course. I should have guessed.
We're known for. So it was always going to be a big focus for us to get that right.
How long did it take you to create Senua, for this game sort of thing, in terms of her fighting style, the voices? So I know they're not hers, but sort of the voices that she hears in her head. How did you come up with each of the different voices? Yeah,
well, so with the voices, it was the first stage really was to sit down and start with the research and understand when it came to voice hearing, to understand science behind the way that we interpret the world, like I've said, and hearing is part of that. And crucially, to sit down and speak with people who have experienced voice hearing and hear lots of different stories from people about how they experience that. And one of the things that really struck me was there is no blueprint for how people experience mental health difficulties. I think everyone's experiences are unique. So it was really important that we weren't, I think in Senua as a character, trying to portray any kind of, this is how people experience it. It's more, this is an example of how it could manifest for people. So with the voices, it was really important to sit down, to listen, understand what it's like for people. And I remember those conversations, and I remember hearing people talk about how, although they couldn't see the people that were speaking to them, they were very much people.
Yeah.
They were very much people in their life, that they had relationships, people that they share their lives with, that other people can't necessarily see or hear.
Yeah.
So kind of with that in mind, it was how do we give the voices that Senua hears character and life and a vibrancy that makes them feel very much real, as they are to Senua, but without her actually seeing them. And it was through experimentation. We came across this technology of binaural audio, and it sounded like a perfect fit for us to be able to realise the voices in a way so that you can hear them all around you. And it was through experimentation, it was through working with actors and not limiting ourselves to an audio booth. We actually recorded all the voices on the same stage that we recorded all the motion capture for the game. So there was a nice big space, and they could move around and use the physicality, use their physicality in the space to bring real depth and life to the voices. And I think there's also for us, like as a small team on the project.
Wow.
We had a team of it was on average about 20 people across the 3 years that it took us to make the game. It's a very, very small team. We couldn't realize all of the characters in a way that you could visualize them. So we had to bring our characters to life through the audio. And our voice actors did an incredible job of that. And we had so much fun doing it, and I think they brought so much life to it. And I think
it's been very rewarding for you then to say that you put this much time, effort, research into getting the voice acting done right, or the voicing done right, and then for you to say that people have come back to you about their experiences in the real world must give you it must be very rewarding.
Yeah, it is. You're right. I think one of the really, really nice things is that in particular, the voice hearing representation in the game has been used beyond the game. It's actually been used by in academia. Different lecturers are now using the voices in Hellblade as an example of what it can be like to hear voices in real life.
Yeah.
So it's kind of transcended beyond the game experience, and people have said to me that they, within academia and within groups and organizations that are doing work with voice hearing, that they feel that the voice hearing representation in Hellblade is the best that there is, which is incredible because we set out to create something that was compelling and was truthful to the types of experiences. So for us to create something in our game that can then go on and be used to help other people outside of the game experience to understand what it's like for people to hear voices is incredible.
Yeah, no, that really is. That's amazing. I think that's the whole reason why we're discussing this. And for anyone out there, I'd say definitely play Hellblade, experience Senua's journey, because I think if there is anyone out there who struggles at times, then it's definitely a game that can help them.
We also have a support website as well. So if you play Hellblade, some of the themes in there leave you with questions, leave you with the feeling that you want to reach out to people to talk further, then you can go to hellbladehelp.info. There's a site there, and we have links to organisations across the world, whichever country you're in, that you can reach out to and talk to as well.
Thank you once again to all of our panelists for joining us, and to you, the audience, for tuning in. We really hope you leave this event with a better understanding of your own mental health, of men's mental health, of the mental health of the men around you, and how all those things can affect you, the individual, and the wider world around you. Now, if you believe you or anyone you do know needs help with their mental health, you can contact Calm, whose details you'll find in the description below. They have dedicated teams and services in place to help men with their mental health. We will also leave links in the description below in order to help you with your mental health as well. Once again, a big thank you to GameSpot for teaming up with us for this event. This has been the GameSpot and the Nerd Council's Men's Mental Health Forum. Thank you so much for tuning in.